How is everyone? Good. All right. Um, Preface, I am nervous, I am anxious, I am human. It's somewhat intimidating to be in front of a room of people, especially when you have an award-winning author to introduce. And this is the first thing I've ever done of its kind along these lines. So please bear with me, give me grace, be patient, and keep the canned tomatoes under your seats. Good evening to all. I hope everyone is well. My name is Rajim Seabrook, and it's both an honor and a pleasure to be here tonight with all of you. This evening, we have the incredible ability to be surrounded by interesting individuals, artistic minds, and warm souls. By the end of the next hour, you will meet a person who has all of the aforementioned rolled into one. Of course, I speak of the honorable and brilliant Candice Carty-Williams. For those of you who may not know her, please allow a little glimpse into her. Candice Carty-Williams is a writer and author of the Sunday Times bestselling Queenie, which was shortlisted for the Waterstones, Foils, and Goodreads books of 2019, as well as selected as the Blackwell's debut of the year in 2016. Candice created and launched The Guardian and the Fourth Estate BAME Short Story Prize, the first inclusive initiative of its kind in book publishing. Candice has written for The Guardian, ID, Vogue International, every iteration of the Sunday Times, Beat Magazine, Black Ballad, and more. And she will always probably live in South London. Confirmed. Queenie, like her latest novel, People Person, is filled with characters I could instantly relate to, as I share many of the traits the characters emanate in her writings. This relation and the ability to look at the world's social, cultural issues through her lenses gave me a cold reality of how the world is outside of my own scope and how so many like me share the same struggles, burdens, loves, and laughs of life, despite it all. In the next few moments, we will hear from Candice as she reads from her newest publication, People Person, now on sale right outside that room. I will then be able to have a brief Q&A session to follow up, and then take a few brief questions from the crowd before closing out the evening. And now I will give you the award-winning, the honorable Candice Carty-Williams.
I'm very scatty and I've forgotten the book, so I'm going to go and grab one from over there so I can read. Are you sure? Thank you. I'm not that honourable, honestly, because if I was, I would have remembered the things I need. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you all for coming. It's lovely to see you all. It's lovely to be here. I'm considering a move now to Montana because it's much nicer than South London in every way, though we did just talk about bears, which I'd forgotten about, but I think I'll be fine. Okay. So yeah, People Person is my second novel, and I guess we'll get into the everything behind it, but I'm just going to start with a little bit from the beginning. I don't like public speaking. I find it very scary, but I'm going to do my best. Thank you. Okay, chapter 1. Their father, Cyril Pennington, was not a discriminatory man. He had 5 children. 5 children that he claimed with 4 different women. Though claiming isn't the same as paying child support or being physically, mentally, or emotionally present. Claiming, in Cyril Pennington's way, was being generally aware that he had 5 children, and possibly more, but he wasn't going to go looking. Remembering their names and sometimes their birthdays, and asking them for money when times were hard. He worked as a bus driver, spending his days doing very little in addition to his job, but flirting with passengers, chasing women much too young for him, and playing dominoes with his acquaintances at the barbershop near the bus garage. Although he was unknowingly a master of detachment, Cyril saw himself as more of a people person than a father. Sadly for his children, this sociability didn't extend to the 5 of them in a way that was mutually beneficial. Cyril's eldest was Nikisha Pennington. Fiery, driven, and bright, she'd decided long ago that having a man in her life was never essential, more like something nice to pick up when she needed to and put back down when she didn't. She had very little time for daddy issues and actually found the term very offensive. The suggestion that she had the issue as a result of being left behind was unbelievable to her. Nikisha's mother was Bernice. Bernice's mum worked at the dental practice Cyril's mother, Dolores, ran with her husband. Cyril had known Bernice for a while before he'd gotten her into bed and subsequently gotten her pregnant. Bernice was a slim and captivating, wildly flirty Jamaican woman with an outwardly sunny disposition, but mainly a tongue that would and could lyrically destroy you. Nikisha had picked this up from Bernice as she'd grown older and sometimes deployed it, but only when she needed to. Then came Danny Pennington Smith. His mother was Tracy Smith, a friendly and more than accommodating petite white woman with a dark blonde bob who lived on the block near the bus garage where Cyril worked. Cyril would help Tracy carry her shopping up the dull stone steps to the flat until the day she asked him if he'd like to come inside for a cup of tea. When she became pregnant, Cyril, in his own optimistic way, vowed to himself that he'd make strides to be present in the life of this child and also to Nikisha, the 2-year-old daughter he already had. That was the first time Cyril had ever notably lied to himself.
We'll detach it.
Okay. Oh, gosh. Am I going to break this microphone? Probably. Sorry.
I've just broken about everything else, so it'll be beyond me.
Okay, thank you. That was much easier than
Okay.
Thank you.
Test. Thank you for that, first
Thank
and
you.
foremost. I want to record your voice and have you in my ear all the time. Like that's beautiful oration. Your book touches on many, many, many topics. When you first started writing People Person, what was the process like, especially off the heels of the success of Queenie?
Yes, thank you. That's a great question. So I'd actually written another version of People Person before the one you have in front of you, because another author had said to me, you should get your second novel out of the way before Queenie comes out, because it's going to be very busy. And I was like, okay, I'll do that. And I did it, but I didn't like it. And so in lockdown, because we were in a lockdown in London, I started writing another one. And I saw my agent and my editor sort of when we had a break from lockdown, and my editor was like, how is editing going? And I was like, oh, I started a whole nother novel. And she was like, oh, God. And that's basically been our relationship for the entire time. But I think I found it very easy to just discard the first one because I didn't really believe in it. I didn't believe it because I'd done it under duress, kind of. Excuse me, I don't have COVID. And so, I hope not. No, I don't, I really don't. And so, but with the second one, I felt like I had something to say. I wanted to talk about half siblings. I wanted to talk about what that relationship means. I wanted to talk about absent fathers.
Powerful. People Person focuses on 5 estranged half-siblings reconnecting later in life. What inspired you to explore the developing bond as well as their complex relationship with their father, Cyril, which you just read about?
Thank you. I think I have my own stuff with my own dad. In fact, someone said to me the other day, like, "Oh, has he said like well done?" And I was like, "He hasn't said hello. Like, I don't speak to this man at all. It's fine. You can laugh. It's fine. I'm fine. I'm cool." And so I wanted to explore that. I wanted to think about that, and I wanted to think about it through these 5 different people. And I guess I sort of took different parts of my own understanding of what my dad could have been in my life and sort of fictionalized that and put that into these 5 different characters and explored that through all of them. And I guess I chose different personalities and different paces and different people who would come to understandings and ultimately, ideally, forgiveness in their own way. And so, yeah, it was just my way of, I think all my work will always just kind of work through the stuff that I need to figure out. And so, yeah, it kind of had to be complex, had to be through all these different people, because I think if I just made it my experience, then it would have just been a work of nonfiction and I could be sued, etc. So
I'm going to go off my questions because you just used the word forgiveness, and I felt that there was a lot of that overlapping theme, not only in this, but in Queenie. Where does forgiveness, to expound upon your point moments ago, where does forgiveness place in your role personally and professionally? Because that's a big thing that we always want from people and sometimes are hard to give to people in return. So where does that fit for you?
I remember when I was really young, I was having all this stuff with my mum. We didn't have a very good relationship when I was growing up. And I remember speaking to my cousin about it, and I was really angry and I was really angsty, and I was like, oh, she did this to me, she did that to me. And he was like, you've got to let go to be free. And I was like, oh. And I think I was like 22, and I'm 33 now, so a lot of time has passed. I spent a lot of time trying to let go. But I have. Me and my mum were cool. But like, I think you do. I think I took that really, everyone gives you advice when you're young, but that piece of advice always stuck with me. And I think that if I'd held on to that stuff, I don't think I would be the person that I am now. And I think that forgiveness is great. I think that forgiveness is amazing, but I don't think that access has to come with that. So I'm really good at kind of being like, I forgive you, but we don't have to have that same relationship that we had before. Though I couldn't say that to my mum because she would cry forever. So she is, but we're cool. So, I think it's that. I think it's just kind of accepting that the more that you hold on to, the more it kind of pulls you down to.
Thank you. Thank you. Dimple, Nikisha, Lizzie, Prince, and Danny come to life before my eyes in distinct and entertaining ways. How do you keep so many characters straight as you write?
This is some people. I'm a star sign person. I'm a zodiac person. Not everyone is, and I appreciate that. But I basically give all my characters star signs before I even give them names, and then I'm just like, this is what this person would do. This is what a Leo would do. This is what a Sagittarius would do, and it feels like the easiest thing for me. Like it just feels like I've tricked myself into like being able to write characters, and so yeah, I just took all of these like I guess traits of the star signs that I've understood, and been like, what are the most chaotic set you want to put together, and that's who we have in the novel.
Oh, I'm going in. So what sign is Dimple?
Cancer, like me, but she's annoying. I'm not annoying.
Okay. Nikisha.
An Aries.
Aries, okay.
Yeah.
Lizzie.
She is a Leo.
Leo. Prince.
Sagittarius.
And Danny.
A Gemini.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that. Despite his lack of involvement, Cyril Pennington is the thread that connects the 5 siblings together. Should we judge him for his shortcomings as a father and as a man? Or does he deserve our compassion or forgiveness?
Oh, that's a really great question. Most readers have told me that they wanted to go into it not liking him, but they came out the other side understanding him. And that's all I ever want to do. And I did that with Queenie because I kind of put this very messy girl in the center of things, and her friends and her family, and everyone had stuff going on, because I think that I want to be as like representative of life as possible. And there's always stuff going on. People always have stuff going on, and everyone is really complex. And I don't think anyone is sort of either good or bad in life, And so I think that in People Person, it was the same thing. It was like, who is this man and why has he done this? Because I don't believe that someone would willingly and very happily have 5 children and then just walk away. So I think there is a disconnect there, and I think it is something within yourself that means that you can't, that you can't access the care that you have for those people. And so rather than sort of being like, why has he done this? Or like, what has he done? Or why is he such a bad person? It's kind of like, what led him to be this person who can't connect with these people who are his children? It's really sad, I think.
It's beautifully sad and tragically realistic. And I love the parallels of all the characters. NPR described Queenie as equal parts millennial comedy and treatises on modern race relationships. Similarly, The Guardian is raving about People Person, calling it a breezily enjoyable read that also doesn't shy away from serious matters like racial discrimination within the police system, toxic relationships, and generational trauma. How do you feel about your writing being perceived as political?
I think it's fine. I think I've always understood that my existence as a black woman is political. I can't really. I think I kind of. I know what happens when I enter a room, not all the time, but I know how people see me, I know how people understand me, and I spent so many years, I guess, kind of realizing that people saw me in a way that I wasn't. And so people always think that I'm really confident, or I'm going to be loud, or I'm going to be angry. And actually, I'm really shy, and I'm not very loud. I'm loudish, not all the time. But like, you know what I mean? Like within reason. And so like, I'm just not this person. I spent so many years just kind of understanding that this existence had been put upon me, not by myself and not by anything that I had done. And I'd spent years trying to exist as the person that I actually naturally was, because politics had said that I I was something else. And so anything that I write and anything that I engage in, I think by proxy is always going to be political because I don't really have a choice. And I think that's fine. I think it's okay. I think it's okay to exist this way. And I will always, I guess, fight for me and people like me to be seen as who they are. And that's who they are, who they're telling you who they are, rather than the perception of that.
Blown away. Thank you for that. I have 2 more questions, but I'm going to allow some questions to open up from the audience. Does anyone have any questions for Ms. Candice? Okay, thank you. Oh, I'll come to you.
I hope that this doesn't seem too frivolous, but I love the notion of writing characters based on astrology. And I was wondering if you do like a full chart or if you mostly go off of the sun sign.
That's a great question. I typically go off of the sun sign, but I'm kind of aware whatever other things could be. Because I think it's just if I keep going into, if I do that, then I won't ever get any work done. If I just like spend time delving into stuff. And so I kind of like have a sense of like what someone's like Venus would be or how they appear and that sort of thing. Sorry if no one likes star signs. I'm very aware that it's like quite a niche thing. Not everyone likes it, but I'm really into it. It's my mum's fault. I blame her. Sorry, Mum.
Well, write some books about Aquarians because that's what I am. Please give me the guidebook to who I am and who I may not be.
Absolutely not.
Thank you.
Two of my exes were Aquarians. It was absolutely terrible.
And with that note, any other questions? Okay, while the brain juices are flowing out there, I'm going to bring it back to Queenie. Queenie I identified with. It was like reading a journal that my family wrote during a family reunion. It was just constant flares. I could hear the accents. I want you to tell me about the corgis. Who were the corgis? Because those group of women, that's my grandmother, that's my aunt, that's 2 of my cousins, and a really good friend of mine. Explain to me the corgis.
So the corgis are her friend group, but everyone around her is a kind of extended corgi, so I get that. And so like with her friends who were the corgis, I really wanted women from different backgrounds because that was important. Because actually, in all the stuff that I've read, and I worked in books, so I've read a lot of books, I never saw like a diverse group of friends. And I would read a lot of writing by white authors, and I would always be like, oh, so all of their friends are just white? And that was really strange because I have loads of white friends. And so I was always like, well, why is no one writing about like me or the other people who exist, who are like, who make up like the texture of people's friendships? And so that was really important to me. And then with her family, I really wanted, so the family corgis, I really wanted women from different generations who were kind of coming at Queenie in different ways. So we have her Aunt Maggie, who is kind of like, what's wrong with you? You should just have this kind of get up and go attitude, like kind of we had to. And then her grandma, who was of the Windrush generation, and like my grandma is of the Windrush generation, but they are very different people, obviously, because again, I don't want to get sued. My nan's not going to sue me, but we never know. And so I really wanted someone who was like, all of your stuff, Queenie, is so frivolous, to borrow your word back there, thank you. Because, you know, Queenie is moaning about heartbreak, and her grandma is like, you don't know what heartbreak is. This is ridiculous, you're 25. Like, I had to leave my great love behind in Jamaica. You've just broken up with someone that you're with for a bit of time, you know? But I also wanted it to be that Queenie could kind of see that, but also be like, no, my feelings are still valid. I'm still really sad about that. I'm allowed to be sad about that. And I think that all of these women in her life, especially the ones who are older than her, are kind of always telling her that she needs to be stronger. And I think her friends are the ones who are like, it's okay not to be that person. And so it's her trying to find that middle space between everyone, I think.
Wonderful. What I loved about a couple of your characters in both of your novels, your sadness never became a bone of bitterness. Your sadness never became a conduit for anger. How does one keep that type of energy welled in inside without it becoming toxified within your character, let alone the person transcribing it onto the page?
I think that anger is a very interesting thing. And I've done a lot of like research around it, and it always comes from something. And so it's thinking about how to not get to that point. And so I think, but also I think as someone who writes and someone who reads and someone who loves music, sadness is one of my favorite things. And I think some of the most beautiful art has come from being sad. And I think that sadness sometimes feels like an emotion that is just, I think people take it seriously, but I don't think everyone always sees how valid it is to kind of sit in your sadness, because I think you're always being told to like move on, you'll be fine, get up and go, just forget about it. And I think there is something so amazing about, in sort of like personal life and also in art, just being able to stay in that space and being like, how do I feel and why? And I don't think that people allow themselves that enough in life, really. But I think sadness is like a great thing. And I think it gives you space to be like, what can I change? What can I do to not be sad when I'm ready? Whereas anger, I think, is such a active emotion. And I don't know how helpful it is, for me anyway.
Thank you. I love that the sadness was a strength, both in Queenie and in Cyril, because I'll be honest, I hated the brother at first. I wanted to kind of knock him out in the book as I'm reading, but then the giving context and as my good friends Heidi and Brooke back there, my frame of reference was different once I was able to zoom out of seeing just what he had done as opposed to what he did to become the man to do the things that he did. So way to have a lot of full circle moments. I appreciate that very much.
Thank you.
I have one last question, but I want to give it back. Does anyone else have? Oh, don't. There we go. I like that.
Thank you. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
I'm wondering, especially in Queenie, the friendships are so important, and in a lot of ways, I thought much more important than Queenie's relationship with any man in the book. And it's something I haven't seen a lot of. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about that. What inspiration you might have had if you had any pushback from editors or readers, etc.
I've had a lot of pushback. I've had a lot of criticism, but it's fine because I'm actually quite into it. I really don't mind criticism at all. I did an event in New York and someone was like, God, have you seen what everyone's saying on Goodreads about Queenie? And I was like, I don't really mind, but it's fine because I think that if I've written someone who is like making people think and making people talk, it's better than nothing, you know? I, as a person, I'm so in love with all of my friends. I just love all my friendships. And no relationship has ever outlasted any of my friendships because I just don't put enough effort in because I'm like, my friends are the best. And relationships can be fun, whatever. But my friendships have always held me down. And they're the things that I love the most. And sometimes, actually, when I've been doing like talks and stuff, I have to sometimes imagine that my best friend is there because she's like really gregarious and she's really like strong. And she's always like, you can do anything. So I have to be like, she's just sat behind you. Because otherwise I'll just be like, I can't do this. And so, yeah, I think about people who have kind of held me up in my life and bolstered me and been kind and been patient and been understanding. And they're always my friends. And not always my family and not always my partners. And so I really wanted to write something that was kind of a love letter to that and a love letter to friendship. And so even in Queenie, all of the men that she has encounters with, all of their names are 3-letter names because I was like, they just don't really matter, you know? Whereas her friends were so textured and so important to her and really important to me. So I think I will always write about friendship as the main thing. I think I would really struggle if I had to write like a romance because I wouldn't care. and so I just end up just being like, and then she hung out with her friends, you know? Thank you for your question. That's a great question. Oh,
The 3-letter names,
now.
I picked up on that. Ted.
I want to know, do you have siblings? And if you do, what is your rank in those siblings?
That's a great question. Get ready, everyone. Okay, my dad has 9 children. One of them I'm not sure is his, but whatever, we'll go with it because he says it's his, so that's fine. I was once the middle of his 7 children, and then he had this new one, and I was like, I've been knocked out of the middle. And then we found out that he had fathered someone at the top, so then I was back in the middle, so that was really good. I was really happy. So even though I've never lived with my siblings on my dad's side, I do have a younger sister. My mum has 2 children. My sister is 9 years younger than me. And we didn't get on at all because she's very selfish. But then she had a baby and she can't be selfish anymore, haha. So, and so basically I'm in this weird thing now where I'm basically like co-parenting with my sister because the dad is like somewhere else, whatever. But it's really fun. And so, yeah, I've always been kind of like an only child, but somehow in the middle. And if I hang out with my dad's kids, I end up being that middle child, kind of, but also just like knowing I don't have any power because they have all grown up together and I'm sort of the outsider. So.
Well, I ask it because these are 5 siblings, and
Yes.
they're forced to be together in a somewhat comedic accident and how they all react. And the oldest one seems to be in control.
Yes.
Okay.
That's never me, ever. Please know. That
You're
if
not
anything-
always willingly, right?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, never. I don't ever have the energy of the elder sibling. In fact, with my younger sister, I call her up and I cry about stuff. And she's like, oh my God, I'm 23. Like, I can't deal with this. And I'm like, but you're a mum now. You have to look after me. Anyway, so yeah, never, that's not me at all. But thank you for a great question.
Anybody else? I feel, see, once the ice is broken, people start going for it.
So you've worked in books and had to read a lot, having just come off of my session of having to have read 85 books and
Oh, God.
selected 50 of them. Is there any that like you've encountered through your work that for whatever reason you're just still holding on to in a way, either in your thoughts in a positive way or it still bothers you in some way?
In terms of books that I've read,
Yes.
oh gosh. What do I love? So I grew up with, so my mum is massively dyslexic. And so there were never books in the house. I would bring them in if I did have them. My nan, however, was a massive reader. And I would always read Flowers in the Attic by Virginia Andrews. What a classic, everyone loves it. And so that book, weirdly, I'm going to reread it because that stuck with me for like all of my life. Because I remember reading it and being like, you're too young to read this. But it definitely opened my mind up to like what incredible writing is like at such a young age. And I was so obviously far from the world that she was writing about. But somehow I really felt like I knew exactly what was going on there. And so, yeah, I think that, strangely, is one of mine for sure. And then at the moment, I'm into a lot of poetry because I'm working on so many things at the moment that my brain is really fast. And so poetry is a thing that really grounds me. But I've just started reading a book called Big Girl by Mecca someone, and it's really, really good. I just posted it on Instagram if you want to go and look, but it's really good. But I think fiction will always be my main love. But yeah, I like to take it back to Virginia Andrews, weirdly.
I saw a hand. There it is. Getting the steps in. Thank you. There you go.
I'm just sort of morbidly curious if you've had any difference in the reception of your work in the States versus at home, and what that sort of looked like for you, and if there's any meaning in it.
Thank you. That's a really good question. They're all great questions. London is a really funny place. And actually, just thinking about, like, the London literature space, it's not as nice as the, like, US literature space at all. And so I feel like because there are less of us, it's a bit more competitive, weirdly, even though it's kind of like we're all writing different things, so we shouldn't really have to be doing that. And actually, here, I always feel like such community, just even amongst authors when I get here. It's like Jacqueline Woodson, who chaired one of my events, one of my favourite authors, and she was like, hey, you're going to be in DC, my daughter lives there, why do you go for dinner with her? And I was like, oh my God, like that's like, this is like an icon telling me to like have lunch with her child. And I was like, this is absolutely crazy. But in London, that would never happen. And I think that kind of extends to the readers. Like I have great readers and I'm really grateful, but actually I get so much love from American readers online. And so my DMs, if I ever go in there, it's always American readers who are like, we can't wait for this, we can't wait to come and see you, like, can we ask you questions? And English people are just like, yeah, I guess you wrote a book, thanks. And so, yeah, so it's definitely different. And actually, you know, I'm over here and I'm doing 8 different, like, events in different places. And I'm so happy to do it because I know that I'm going to meet amazing people. And I think that people here care more about books than they do in the UK. I think, you know, they care enough in the UK. But I think I really feel the love when I come over here. It's really nice.
Good questions.
Yeah.
Great responses.
Thanks.
Anyone else? All right.
So we were talking earlier about our dream of opening a bookshop later in life. So
Together.
oh yeah. The
Sorry.
US UK coming together. So do you kind of have an idea of what you want it to look like? What's the vibe? Do you have a name? Like,
Gosh,
how do you
that's
want
a
it to
really
be?
nice question. No, so I was saying earlier to Kelly that I wanted to be a librarian for many, many years because as a kid, I used to go to libraries constantly. And at one point, I was excluded from school. I didn't do anything wrong, I promise you, but I was wrongfully excluded. And I went to the library every single day, and I was like, this is just the best time of my life. I don't even want to go back to school. And so, yeah, after that, I was like, that's what I want to do. But then I was like, maybe I want to open a bookshop instead. And that's what I think I will do. But in terms of how it looks, I don't know, but I want it to be very comfortable. And I want people to be able to come and sit and read. And if they don't want to buy it, that's fine. But I think there is something about, so maybe I should open a library, obviously. But I think my whole thing is like, you know, also maybe there's some system of like you can pay what you can because actually books are very expensive. And I didn't realize that mine was so expensive here until the other day. And I was like, wow, that's an investment. Thank you, everyone. But in the UK, it was a lot more money. And I asked for the price to come down because I was like, not everyone can afford that. And so, yeah, I don't mind taking the hit. So I think that if anything, it would be like very accessible. And so, yeah, I don't know what it looks like, but I know that I want people to feel like they can come in and like leave either knowing something or having something that maybe they didn't think they could have.
Anybody else? Okay. I'm going to ask my last 2 questions, even though one was stolen from me. It's okay. It's all right. Creative juices, great minds meet. First and foremost, how do we get you back to Missoula? Your energy is ridiculous. You're like, or how long can you stay?
Just invite me back, I'll come back. Like, it's really simple. I love it here. So.
Witnesses, and it's being recorded. I'm going to hold you to it.
Okay.
Then what do you hope readers take away from People Person? What do you want them to take away from it? What do you need them to take away from it?
Thank you. I'd like them to, I guess, enjoy these people coming together because I think it's an interesting thing. I think it's an interesting conceit. I enjoyed writing. I thought it was fun. But I think I want them to take away from it this idea of like forgiveness and understanding. Because I could have written a different novel where everyone sort of flagellated this person for not being a dad and not being amazing. But it's also just kind of like, but not everyone is built to be that. And I think that, you know, it's understanding that parents are people and that people have their stuff. And I think that's the thing. I think everyone has their stuff. And I'm always, I guess, really grateful I feel very grateful to understand that about people. So I don't take a lot personally because I'm always like, that's not about me. So I guess it's that in a nutshell, just kind of like understanding people and understanding where they came from.
On that note, beautiful people in Missoula, let's give a warm, warm welcome and applause for Miss Candice.
And thank you to you.
Thank you. It was, not to overuse, thunderous. Thank you. And I would love to thank my man Sam for allowing me to be part of this, which is in direct correlation and connection with my job at Empower Montana. So I also thank Brooke and Heidi for being part of that and helping facilitate this wonderful unison of good people, community, and brilliance. Thank you. Be well and have a good evening.
Thank you for coming.
Again, thank you, Candice. Candice was the first author I accepted, and kind of the person I built the festival around. And this is so special that you all get to share this with me. But that's being selfish. Just a quick couple of housekeeping notes.